Hello and welcome to Chapter 13, Part 2. All right, we're left off with, don't forget to take the notes. I got to say that. Take the notes and submit them as homework. All right, so we're left off with a system protection. So write the following down. Here we go. To enable system protection, the system protection, open the control panel and open the system windows. In the system window, click on the system protection. The system protection tab of the system property box appears, as you can see it right here. Make sure the protection is turned on for the drive containing Windows, which indicates the restore points and created automatically. So this way you automatically have restore points constantly happening for you. All right, so now let's get into talking about partition and the file system, how they work. All right, so again, start writing. This is a very important chapter, and I want you to write all the notes that I'm giving you because it's important. All right, number one, before a hard drive leaves a factory, there's a process called low-level formatting that organizes the space in a long series of logical blocks, and these blocks are called logical block addressing, LBA. All right, number two, MBR. I know we talked about that, the master boot record before. MBR partition can have up to 4 partitions, three primaries and 1 logical. Number 3, GPT partition, which stands for globally unique identifier. That's the GUID, the globally unique identifier partition table, or GUID-PT. The system can support up to 128 partitions and is required for drives that are larger than 2.2 terabytes. Recall that GPT is required for anything that's 64-bit operating, any 64-bit operating system, and that the UEFI firmware is needed to make sure that you use a secure boot, a feature that the UEFI and the OS has. Most new computers sold today use the GPT system. All right, so just don't forget that. Number 4, the first sector in a GPT system contains the protective MBR. It's always protected. It won't move, even if you defragmented your hard drive. The GPT provides information to the legacy software that doesn't recognize the GPT. So with the GPT, you have, stuff about the MBR to make sure that you are backward compatible. All right. And that allows you to repair it if you need to. GPT systems also back up the partition table at the end of the disk. All right, so let's talk about the file system. Please write these down because you will be exposed to these whenever you are formatting your flash drives, hard drives, or even external drives. You need to decide on which type of file system when you're doing your high-level formatting. So, high-level formatting, what it does is it erases the drives it erases all the data on the drive and places one of the following file system on the drive. Remember, the file system is the one that keeps track of all the files on the hard drive. All right, so number 1 is the NTFS. NTFS stands for New Technology File System. It is required for Windows 10, 8, or 7. It supports encryption, disk quotas. That means you can set how much space you can have on your hard drive. It is reliable, more efficient than FAT32. All right, remember the allocations clusters. They use 64 kilobytes for FAT32, 8 kilobytes, a lot more efficient. Folder for NTFS. Folder compression also supports. If you boot the system from another boot medium, such as a DVD, you can access a volume using a FAT file system. But if the volume uses NTFS, an administrator password is required to gain access. All right, so that's your NTFS. Now, the latest file system, B, number 2, is called the Resilient File System, REFS, which is designed to improve on the NTFS file system by offering better performance, also offers fault tolerance, and protects the data when the sectors of the hard drives are failing. It will eliminate the need for repair. You can use check disk if when you're using check disk, you don't need to do that anymore. And it offers a compatibility with virtualization and data redundancy when you're running a RAID system. All right, NFS, number 3, which is the network file system. This is for a client server file system that supports sharing files over the network across different platforms. All right, EXEFAT, you'll see that a lot when you are trying to save files on your flash drive, and your flash drive typically is using FAT32 or NTFS. So you probably want to format your file drive through EXFAT so you can install a whole larger application. But let's go over the definitions. EXFAT, choose EXFAT file system for large external storage devices that you want to use with other operating system. exFAT uses the same structure as the older FAT32 file system, but with a 64-bit wide file allocation table. exFAT does not use as much overhead as the NTFS, and it is designed to handle very large files, such as those that are used for multimedia storage. All right, FAT32, that's the old stuff. FAT32 is for small hard drives or USB flash drives. But if your flash drive is, 64 gigabyte or 512, you probably want to format it with exFAT. It doesn't also have a much overhead with NTFS. Overhead because NTFS has a lot of overhead because you can do compressions and encryptions and all that other stuff. And it's supported by Linux and other operating system. The CDFS and UDF, which stands for Compact Disk File System, is an older file system that is used by optical discs such as CDs, DVDs, or Blu-rays, and is being replaced by a new UDF, the Universal Disk Format. All right, so how are partition used during the boot? So we need to discuss that. All right, number 1, with MBR hard drives, one of the primary partition is designated as active. Please write these down. I know I'm killing you with this chapter, but please do that. I think it's very, very important. So, partition during boot. Number 1, the MBR hard drives, one of the primary partition is designated the active partition, which is the bootable partition that starts the BIOS UEFI, turns when you search for an operating system to load. That's the bootstrap looking for an operating system. Bootstrap will go to the primary active partition to look for the boot sequence and load the operating system from there. All right, so one of the partition has to be primary and has to be active because that's where bootstrap will go to. Number 2, in GPT system, this bootable partition is called EFI, system partition. UEFI turns it to start the operating system and the OS and blah, 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 right? Number 3, in Windows, the Windows partition, the MBR is active partition, or the GPT EFI system partition is called the system partition, okay? This is where for Windows 10, 8, or 7, the boot manager is named boot MGR. No extensions on it. The boot manager turns the volume that is designated the boot partitions where the Windows operating system is stored and continues the process starting Windows. All right, so it's the boot manager he's the one that takes over and loads the operating system. All right, so when Bootstrap goes to the active partition and finds, he speaks with the boot manager, and the boot manager takes over and loads the rest of the operating system from the hard drive, loads it into memory. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about disk management to manage hard drive. Now, again, write these down. Number one, you can resize, create, and delete partitions. All you have to do, open the disk manager, right click on the partition space, and then you can shrink the volume. Okay. Number two, you can prepare the drive for first use. So all you have to do, just go to disk management again, initialize the disk as basic. Basic disk means you have a single hard drive that works independently of other drives. Then you can create a volume, format it with the file system. As you learned that, we did this earlier. You can now create a simple volume in unallocated space on the disk. All right. Number three, how to mount a drive. All right. What does that mean, mounting a drive? A mount drive is a volume that can be accessed by way of a folder from another volume, right? And from another volume so that the folder now has more space. A mount drive is useful when the folder volume is too small and you need more space. So you can mount a drive for it. Okay, so you can use the disk management to do that as well. A basic disk works independently of other hard drives, but the dynamic disks, so you can, that's what dynamic is. Dynamic disk can work with other hard drive to hold data. Volume stores on dynamic disks are called dynamic volumes. Several dynamic disks can work together to collectively present as a single volume. That's called spanning over physical drives. Number 6, you can implement dynamic disks on multiple hard drives to extend the volume across these drives. Again, we call that spanning. Dynamic disks. Dynamic disks, this is number 7. You're writing these down, right? Dynamic disks can be used to piece data across multiple hard drives to improve performance and to provide fault tolerance, protect the data against loss. The technology to configure 2 or more hard drives to work together as an array drives. Remember, we talked about that? That's the RAID, the redundant array of inexpensive or independent disks. Number 8, storage space in Windows 10 or 8 is a potential replacement for traditional Windows software RAID. So you can have that, which is good. With storage spaces, with Windows storage spaces, you can create storage. You can create storage pool using a number of internal and external drives. Okay, this is the storage spaces we're talking about. Drives that use interfaces such as SATA or serial SATA. You can create 1 or more virtual drives called spaces from this pool of drives, which appears to be normal drives for the file explorer. So you can create multiple virtual drives with storage spaces Windows 10 with Windows 10 or Windows 8. All right. What else do we need to know? Now, we're going to stop right here. There's going to be another video for Chapter 13, the third one. So write down all this stuff, take a little break, and when you come back, we'll continue with Chapter 13. All right, a little bit more writing, and we'll all be done. Just don't forget to submit this, whatever you wrote down, for homework.